The massive crystalline dome of the Galactic Council headquarters pulsed with red warning lights as emergency alarms echoed through its hollow chambers. Representatives from across the galaxy rushed to their designated seats, their various breathing apparatus and environmental suits creating a symphony of mechanical hums and alien whispers. Councillor Vextai of the Altarian Republic stood trembling at the central podium, his transparent blue skin rippling with dark patterns of pure terror. His fur delicate arm shook as he activated the holographic display, showing the peaceful mining world of Zirian 7 now surrounded by menacing black warships on the delegates of the Council. Vextai's voice cracked through the universal translator. 3 days ago, our mining colony sent their last transmission. The Kether Dominion has arrived in overwhelming force. The hologram shifted to show grainy footage from the colony's final moments. Massive, insect-like creatures in powered armor dragged screaming Altarian civilians from their homes while their children watched in horror. The footage cut to black as the transmission ended. "They're taking our people to the slave markets of Tagash," Vextai continued, his voice breaking. "Men, women, children, all of them gone. Our colony ships tried to evacuate, but the Kether intercepted them. We estimate 12,000 civilians are now in enemy hands." Ambassador Kreenel of the Zephyrian Trade Union slammed his metallic fist on his desk, creating a thunderous clang that echoed through the chamber. "The Kether grow bolder each cycle. First they attacked our shipping lanes. Now they openly assault Council member worlds." General Murden of the Council Defense Force rose slowly, his reptilian features grim with the weight of bad news. The old warrior's scales had dulled with age, but his voice carried the authority of someone who had fought in the border wars 3 decades ago. "The situation is worse than we feared," General Murden announced, activating his own tactical display. Red dots scattered across the galaxy map like drops of blood. "Our intelligence networks report Kether fleet movements in 17 different sectors. This isn't just a raid on Zirian 7. They're testing our defenses across the entire outer rim." A collective gasp rose from the assembly as the true scope of the threat became clear. The Kether weren't just raiders anymore. They were preparing for something much larger. "Our peacekeeping forces are stretched beyond breaking point," the general continued grimly. "We have battle groups engaged with pirates in the Vega sector, humanitarian missions in the collapse zone, and 3 separate border disputes requiring our attention. To mount an effective rescue operation for Zirian 7, we would need to abandon our positions elsewhere." Senator Willenex of the Core Worlds leaned forward, her multiple eyes blinking rapidly with agitation. "Surely we cannot abandon 12,000 innocent civilians to slavery. The moral implications alone. The tactical implications are worse," General Murden interrupted. "If we withdraw forces to save Zirian 7, the Kether will likely strike at least 6 other vulnerable positions. We could lose entire star systems trying to save one colony." The chamber erupted in heated debate. Representatives shouted in dozens of different languages, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping arguments. Some demanded immediate action regardless of cost. Others insisted on a measured diplomatic approach. If you openly suggested abandoning the outer colonies entirely to defend the core worlds. In the midst of this chaos, a quiet voice spoke from the shadows of the restricted archives section. The debate slowly died as all eyes turned toward the ancient figure of Archivist Nalthik, keeper of the Council's deepest secrets. Nalthik was old beyond measure, his grey skin like weathered stone, his eyes clouded with the wisdom and burden of centuries. He rarely spoke in council sessions, and when he did, it was usually to deliver news that changed the course of galactic history. "There is another option," Nalthik said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of forbidden knowledge. "Protocol 7 Alpha." The chamber fell into absolute silence. Even the mechanical breathing apparatus seemed to quiet in anticipation. Protocol 7 Alpha was a legend. A whispered contingency plan that most believed was merely a bureaucratic myth. General Merton S. Scaled face showed genuine shock. Archivist, surely you don't mean the Deathworld Initiative? Nalvik nodded gravely, his ancient hands trembling as he accessed the sealed files. 57 standard years ago, we received an unprecedented communication from the third spy alarm, a species from a Class 12 death world, offering military assistance to the Council in exchange for future diplomatic considerations. The implications hit the chamber like a physical force. Class 12 death worlds were places where evolution had gone completely wrong, producing predators so dangerous that most civilized species considered them uninhabitable nightmare realms. The humans of Terra. Now they continued, his voice barely above a whisper. Their planet is a hellscape of natural disasters, predatory wildlife, and environmental extremes that would kill most council species within hours. The inhabitants have evolved accordingly. Ambassador Crenel's metallic voice carried a note of horror. You're suggesting we contact barbarians from a death planet? What could such primitives possibly offer against Kether battle fleets? Nalvik activated another holographic display, showing intercepted transmissions from the human homeworld. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as humans in primitive aircraft engaged in aerial combat, their weapons creating explosions that could level entire city blocks. They call it their World War II. Nalvik explained. This footage is from their own historical archives, showing conflicts from their pre-spaceflight era. Notice their approach to warfare. They don't fight to claim territory or resources. They fight to completely destroy their enemy's ability to continue fighting. The debate that followed was unlike anything in Council history. Some representatives argued that contacting a Death World species violated every principle of civilized diplomacy. Others pointed out that desperate times required desperate measures. Councillor Vextai, his people dying in Kether slave pens, finally spoke the words that would doom or save the galaxy. If there's any chance of saving our people, we must try. Send the signal. The vote was close, but desperation won over caution. Deep in the Council's communication days, technicians activated equipment that hadn't been used in over half a century. The message was simple, transmitted on frequencies that could reach the distant blue-green world orbiting a yellow star in the galaxy's outer undot as the signal raced through hyperspace toward Earth. None of the Council delegates could have imagined what they had just unleashed. They had asked for backup. They were about to discover what happened when you asked a planet full of apex predators for help. The galaxy would never be the same. The Sol space station hung in Earth's orbit like a massive steel fortress, its rotating sections generating artificial gravity for the 10,000 personnel who called it home. In the heart of the command center, banks of holographic displays showed the real-time status of humanity's space fleet scattered across. As the solar system, Admiral Dehokim had been reviewing routine patrol reports when the priority alert flashed across his personal display. The sound that followed made his blood run cold. It was the first contact protocol alarm, something that had only existed in theoretical training scenarios. The decoded transmission materialized in the air before him, alien symbols slowly transforming into readable text as the quantum computers work their magic. Kim's weathered face, marked by decades of military service, remained impassive as he absorbed the impossible message. Sir, incoming priority communication from Deep Space Monitoring Station Alpha. Lieutenant Commander Sujin Park announced, as she hurried across the command deck, her boots clicking against the metal floor. Her usually calm demeanor showed cracks of excitement and barely contained panic. "Talk to me, Park," Kim said without taking his eyes off the floating text. The translation algorithms have been running for 3 hours, cross-referencing against every known linguistic pattern in our databases. Confidence level is 94%, sir. Park's voice carried the weight of history. We're receiving a distress call from an alien civilization. They're requesting immediate military assistance against hostile forces. Kim finally looked up from the display, his dark eyes sharp with the intensity that had made him Earth's youngest fleet admiral. Round the command center, dozens of technicians and officers had stopped their work to stare at the impossible message. Hanging in the air, hostile forces, Kim asked, his tactical mind immediately shifting into combat mode. According to the transmission, sir, a species called the Kether Dominion has attacked their mining colony. They've taken 12,000 civilians as slaves and are apparently preparing for a larger invasion of their territory. The Admiral's jaw tightened. Slavery was something humanity had fought to eliminate on their own world, and the thought of it existing among the stars made his blood boil. What do we know about their military capabilities? Park activated her data pad, projecting detailed analysis into the air. The aliens, they call themselves the Altarian Republic, appear to have peacekeeping forces. Similar to our old UN structure, lightly armed, focused on diplomacy rather than warfare. The hostile species, these Kether, seem to be pure military aggressors. Fleet status report, Kim commanded, his voice carrying across the command center. Commander Jin Woolley, the station's tactical officer, immediately responded from his position at the central console. 3rd Expeditionary Fleet is at full combat. Readiness, Admiral. We completed the War Games exercise in the Jupiter system 2 weeks ago, and all ships are fully supplied and armed. Kim nodded approvingly. The 3rd Expeditionary Fleet was humanity's crown jewel, designed specifically for long-range operations beyond the solar system. Give me the numbers, Commander. 12 Sir John-class dreadnoughts. Sir, each one carries enough firepower to level a continent. 47 turtle ship destroyers, our fastest and most maneuverable warships. 8 Hurong carrier groups with full fighter complements, and the 9th Marine Division under Colonel J. Mincho. Total personnel, 30,000 of our best-trained soldiers. The command center buzzed with nervous energy as the implication sank in. This wasn't a training exercise or a show of force. This was first contact with hostile alien species. And humanity's response would set the tone for their entire future. In the galaxy, Sir, Park continued, there's something else. The transmission mentions that they're part of something called the Galactic Council. It appears there's an entire civilization of species out there, and they're all being threatened by these Kether raiders. Kim walked to the massive viewport that dominated one wall of the command center. Outside, Earth hung like a blue marble against the starfilled void, peaceful and beautiful, but he knew that peace was about to end. Humanity was about to take their first steps onto the galactic stage, and those steps would be taken in combat. Boots, what's the recommended response protocol for this scenario? Kim asked, though he already knew the answer. Lieutenant Commander Park consulted her manual, though everyone in the room knew the relevant section by heart. First contact with hostile alien species threatening civilian populations. The manual recommends overwhelming force deployment to establish human military credibility and protect innocent lives. Kim allowed himself a grim smile. Humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare on a planet that constantly tried to kill them. Every storm, every earthquake, every predator had taught them that the best defense was usually a crushing. Offense, communications, prepare a response transmission. Kim ordered. Message reads, assistance authorized. Fleet deployment in 72 hours. Hang on. The communication officer's fingers flew across his console, encoding the message. For transmission to the distant alien world. Message transmitted. Sir, estimated arrival time at their coordinates. For hours, across the fleet. Similar scenes were playing out on every ship. Captain Hyginley aboard the dreadnought Incheon Fury watched her crew prepare for humanity's first interstellar war. The massive ship's weapon systems hummed to life as the crew ran final diagnostics on plasma cannons that could crack moons in half. Captain reported Navigation Officer Minhoyum from his position at the helm. All ships are reporting ready for hyperspace transition. Fleet formation is locked and loaded. Lee nodded, studying the tactical briefing that had just arrived from Fleet Command. The enemy had made one crucial mistake. They had threatened innocent civilians within range of human intervention. Throughout history, that had never ended well for the aggressors. Signal from Admiral Kim. Captain, the communications officer announced. All ships are to maintain combat formation through hyperspace. We're going in ready for a fight. The fleet began its transition to hyperspace. 30,000 tons of Earth's finest warships disappearing into the void between stars. What the aliens didn't understand was humanity's concept of proportional response. They had asked for backup to deal with raiders attacking a single colony. Earth was sending enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems in the depths of space. Humanity's war machine moved toward its first galactic conflict, carrying with it all the fury and determination of a species that had clawed its way to the top of the food chain on a world where everything was designed to kill them. The galaxy was about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world, and why you never, ever threatened the innocent when humans were watching. The hyperspace tunnel collapsed in a brilliant flash of blue light as the human fleet dropped back into normal space at the edge of T. Isirian system. What emerged was a sight that would haunt alien nightmares for generations to come. 12 massive dreadnoughts led the formation, their angular hulls bristling with weapon rays that gleamed like the teeth of some cosmic predator. Behind them came the destroyers, sleek and deadly, moving with the coordinated precision of a wolf pack. The carrier groups spread out like the wings of some enormous bird of prey. Their fighter bays already launching squadrons of combat craft aboard the Kethva flagship Blood Harvest. Commander Zethikul was enjoying his morning meal of live prey when the proximity alarms began screaming. His insectoid features twisted into a snarl as he abandoned his breakfast and scuttled to the bridge on 6 armored legs. Report. He clicked in the harsh Kethva language, his mandibles dripping with the fluids of his interrupted meal. Lieutenant Vexamuth, a younger Kethva with still bright chitin, hunched over the sensor console. Unknown vessels, Commander, large formation, approximately. By the dark gods, sir. There are over 60 ships. Zevicul compound eyes focused on the tactical display. The Kethva had brought 37 vessels to Zirian 7. More than enough to handle any galactic council response. But this fleet was larger than anything the Peaceful Council had ever fielded. Ship classifications, Zethikul demanded, known. Designs, Commander. But the energy signatures, they're massive. Some of those vessels are reading power levels equivalent to our entire battle group. The Kethva commander studied the formation with growing unease. These ships moved with military precision, maintaining perfect formation even as they spread across the system. Whoever they were, they clearly knew how to fight. Open communications on all frequencies. Zevicul ordered. Let's see what these newcomers want. The transmission went out across the system. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves. The system is under Dominion control. Any interference will be met with overwhelming force. The response came back almost immediately, broadcast on every communication channel in the system with such power that it overrode the Kethva's own internal communications. This is Admiral Daeho Kim of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. The voice was calm, measured, and carried an undertone of barely controlled fury. You have engaged in acts of aggression against a Galactic Council member. You have enslaved innocent civilians. You have 30 standard minutes to withdraw all forces from this system and release your prisoners. On the bridge of the Blood Harvest, Zethical's mandibles clicked rapidly in what passed for Kefir laughter. Terran, we have never heard of this species. He activated the general broadcast system. You face the might of the Kefir Dominion. Fleet, unknown aliens. We have conquered 17 star systems and enslaved millions. Surrender now, and we may grant you swift deaths instead of slow ones, aboard the human flagship Soul's Pride. Admiral Kim stood in the center of the command bridge, surrounded by holographic displays showing every ship in both fleets. His officers watched him with the quiet confidence of soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Tactical analysis. Commander Park, Kim requested. Sujin Park consulted her displays, her fingers dancing across touch-sensitive controls. 37 enemy vessels. Admiral, their ships appear designed for boarding actions and intimidation rather than ship-to-ship combat. Thick armor, but primitive shielding technology. Their weapons are primarily plasma-based, short-range, high energy consumption, classic radar configuration. Noted Captain Wonsik Choi from his position at the tactical station. Built to frighten civilians and overwhelm lightly armed peacekeepers. But, sir, they are not prepared for our kind of warfare. Kim nodded grimly. The Kefir ships were exactly what he'd expected from a slaving culture. Big, scary, and ultimately ineffective against a real military force. Fleet status. All ships report ready for combat. Admiral, fighters are launched and maintaining cap positions. Marine assault shuttles are loaded and standing by. The 30-minute deadline ticked down with agonizing slowness. On the Kefir ships, commanders debated whether these unknown Terrans were bluffing. On the human ships, weapons officers made final adjustments to targeting systems that had been perfected through centuries of warfare. At exactly 30 minutes. Admiral Kim gave the order that would change galactic history forever. All ships, weapons free. Show them what humans do to slavers. The space around Zirian 7 erupted in fire and fury. The human fleet opened with coordinated volleys that lit up the darkness like artificial stars. Plasma beams, particle cannons, and missile salvos reached across millions of kilometers in seconds. Captain Hyginely watched from the bridge of the Incheon Fury as her dreadnought's main gun spoke. For the first time in anger, the twin plasma cannons, each one capable of cracking a moon in half, fired in perfect synchronization. The beams crossed the void and struck a Kefir heavy cruiser amidships. The alien vessel simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a kilometer long, monument to Kefir brutality. The next moment there was only expanding plasma and debris. Target destroyed. Captain, reported weapons officer Sung Min Park with professional satisfaction. Selecting next target. Across the battlefield, the story was the same. The Kefir ships, built for intimidation and boarding actions, were completely unprepared for humanity's approach to space combat. Where the aliens expected elaborate maneuvers and boarding parties, the humans delivered overwhelming firepower from maximum range. Commander Zethical watched in horror as his fleet was systematically dismantled. The Blood Harvest shook under multiple impacts as human fighters swarmed round it like angry wasps, their weapons tearing through armor that had never been designed to withstand such precise, concentrated fire. Damage report. He screeched as sparks showered from overhead conduits, engines at 40%. Weapons offline. Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. The reports came in a panicked rush from his surviving crew. How many ships have we lost? The silence that followed was answer enough. Of the 37 vessels that had entered the system in such confidence, 17 were now expanding clouds of debris. 11 more were dead in space. Their crews either dead or evacuating in lifeboats. The remaining 9 were in full retreat. Their commanders, having finally grasped the hopelessness of their situation, Commander Zethekal pulled himself from the wreckage of his command chair, green blood leaking from multiple wounds. With shaking claws, he activated the emergency transmitter. "What manner of demons are you?" He transmitted on all frequencies, his voice broken with pain and disbelief. The response came from the lead human dreadnought, broadcast across the system. For all to hear, Captain Lee's voice was calm, professional, and absolutely terrifying in its matter-of-fact delivery. "We're just humans, and you picked the wrong fight." The Battle of Zirion 7 was over. 27 minutes of combat had broken a Kepha fleet that had terrorized the Outer Rim for decades. The humans had achieved total victory without losing a single ship. In the holds of the surviving Kepha vessels, 12,000 Altarian prisoners looked up in wonder as human marines cut through the bulkheads to free them. For the first time in days, they dared to hope. The galaxy had just learned why Earth was classified as a death world, and why its children were the most dangerous species among the stars. The dropships cut through Zirion 7's burning atmosphere. Like falling stars, their heat shields glowing cherry red as they descended toward the planet's surface. Inside the lead assault craft, Colonel Jamin Cho checked his rifle one final time, the familiar weight of the weapon comforting in his hands. 2 minutes to touchdown. Announced the pilot over the intercom. Intelligence reports heavy Kepha presence round the main colony. "We've got our people penned up in the central plaza." Cho's jaw tightened inside his helmet. Through the small viewport, he could see the colony below. Once a thriving mining settlement, now scarred by weapon fire and burning structures. Smoke columns rose like funeral pyres into the alien sky. "Listen up, Marines," Cho's voice carried. Through the squad communications network to all 30 dropships in the assault wave. "The enemy is using civilian shields. That means precision shots only. I'd rather lose 10 Marines than harm one innocent. Is that understood?" A chorus of "yes, sir," echoed through the comm system. These weren't fresh recruits, they were veterans of Earth's corporate wars, soldiers who had learned to fight in urban environments where every mistake could cost civilian lives. The dropships touched down in perfect formation on the outskirts of the colony, their landing thrusters kicking up. Clouds of red dust. Before the dust had even settled, the assault ramps were dropping and Marines were pouring out in full combat gear. Sergeant Yong-Soo Nam led his squad toward the eastern approach, their powered armor servo swinging softly as they moved through. His helmet's heads-up display. He could see the tactical overlay showing enemy positions marked in red, civilian concentrations in blue. "Contact front," whispered Corporal So Young Choi from her position behind a damaged mining hauler. 3 Kepha warriors, 50 meters. You've got at least 6 Altarian kids with them. Nam studied the situation through his scope. The insectoid aliens were positioned behind crude barricades, their chitinous armor gleaming in the twin suns' light. The Altarian children, small, delicate beings with large eyes and pale blue skin, were clearly terrified, huddled together. In the center of the enemy position, precision fire only, Nam ordered, "Choi, you've got the best eye. Can you make the shot?" Choi adjusted her position. Her rifle's advanced targeting system painting laser dots on her helmet display. The Kepha were using the children as living shields, a tactic that had apparently worked against Council peacekeepers, but Council peacekeepers weren't human Marines. The shot came from impossible angles. Choi's bullet ricocheted off a metal beam, curved around a concrete barrier, and took the lead Kepha in the head with surgical precision. Before his companions could react, Nam and Private Ho Jinli had flanked them from opposite sides, their own shots equally precise, children secure. Choi reported as she rushed forward to comfort the terrified young Altarians, their translator. Devices struggled with their rapid, frightened speech, but the meaning was clear. They had thought they were going to die. Similar scenes played out across the colonies. Human Marines demonstrated why Earth was feared throughout the galaxy. Where are other species saw impossible tactical problems? Humans saw puzzles to be solved with violence applied with mathematical precision. At the colony's main complex, Colonel Cho faced the largest concentration of enemy forces. The Kepha had turned the administrative building into a fortress, with dozens of Altarian civilians visible through the windows. Any direct assault would result in massive civilian casualties. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Mian Park, the battalion's communications officer, "we've established contact with the survivors inside. Elder Villanov is asking for our plan." Cho studied the building through his binoculars. "Counting enemy positions and civilian locations. Tell the Elder to get everyone to the ground floor, northwest corner, in exactly 10 minutes, and tell them to cover the areas." What followed was a masterclass in precision urban warfare. Human combat engineers placed shape charges with mathematical precision, creating breaches that would allow clear lines of fire while protecting civilians. Snipers took position to cover every possible escape route. Combat medics prepared to treat both human casualties and alien civilians. At exactly 10 minutes, the building's eastern wall disappeared in a controlled explosion. Before the debris had finished falling, Marines were pouring through the breach. Like a human avalanche, the battle inside lasted exactly 14 minutes. The Kepha, accustomed to opponents who valued their own lives above military objectives, found themselves facing an enemy that viewed acceptable casualties as simply another tactical consideration. When human Marines were willing to take enemy fire to protect civilian shields, the Kepha's primary advantage disappeared. Corporal Choi found herself dragging 3 Altarian children to safety while her squad provided covering fire. Bullets whizzing over their heads as they ran for the secure zone. The alien children's large eyes reflected both terror and wonder as they watched these strange beings risk everything to protect strangers. "Don't worry," Choi whispered in her broken attempt at their language. "We've got you now." When the shooting finally stopped, Elder Villanov approached Colonel Cho with tears streaming down his translucent blue face. The elderly Altarian's voice shook with emotion as he asked the question that would echo throughout the galaxy. "Why do you fight for us? We are strangers to your species. What do you gain from risking your lives for a people you have never met?" Cho removed his helmet, revealing a face marked by years of combat but softened by genuine compassion. "Because someone has to," he replied simply, "and because it's the right thing to do." In the colony's converted detention center, intelligence officers worked through the night interrogating captured Kepha soldiers. What they discovered sent chills through the command structure all the way back to Earth. Major Byung-ho Kim, the division's intelligence chief, compiled the final report as dawn broke over Zirian 7. The pattern was unmistakable and terrifying in its implications. Admiral Kim reported via secure transmission to the fleet flagship. "This wasn't an isolated raid. The Kepha have been conducting reconnaissance operations across 17 different sectors. They are mapping Council defense positions, identifying weak points, and cataloging the locations of major population centers." Admiral Kim studied the holographic star map that showed the scope of Kepha operations. Red markers indicated confirmed raids. Yellow markers showed suspected reconnaissance missions. The pattern was clear. The Dominion was preparing for something massive, estimated invasion force. The Admiral asked grimly, "Conservative estimate, sir, over 2,000 ships. They're planning to hit multiple Council worlds simultaneously, overwhelming any possible response." Zirian 7 was supposed to be a test of response times and defensive capabilities. The weight of realization settled over the human command structure like a heavy blanket. They had come to rescue 12,000 civilians from slavers. Instead, they had uncovered a plot that threatened the entire galaxy. Admiral Kim stared out at the stars through his flagship's viewport, knowing that somewhere in the darkness, the largest invasion fleet in galactic history was preparing to move. The galaxy was about to face its greatest threat, and somehow, humanity had become its unlikely protector. The rescue mission was over. The real war was about to begin. The news of Zirion 7's liberation spread across the galaxy like wildfire, carried by quantum communication networks that connected thousands of worlds. On every inhabited planet, in every space station, the same impossible story was being told. Humans had appeared from nowhere and crushed the mighty Kether Dominion in less than an hour. Deep within the shadow realm of Togash Prime, Supreme, Overlord Greshtak sat on his throne of polished bone, watching the battle recordings for the 100th time. His massive form, a terrifying combination of insect and nightmare, trembled with barely controlled rage as the holographic display showed his fleet being systematically destroyed. 17 of our finest battle cruisers, hissed his chief aide, Vex Morgul, his voice carrying the weight of disbelief. Gone in 27 minutes, and the humans didn't lose a single ship. Supreme One. Greshtak's compound eyes glowed with malevolent intelligence as he studied the tactical data. For 3 centuries, the Kether Dominion had expanded across the galaxy through pure intimidation. Their massive ships, bristling with weapons and armor, had been enough to make entire star systems surrender without a fight. What manner of weapons do these humans possess? Greshtak demanded, his mandibles clicking with agitation. Our surviving commanders report energy levels beyond our understanding, Supreme One. But more disturbing, Vex Morgul paused, his chitinous form shuddering. They didn't fight for a territory or resources. Our intercepted communications suggest they were genuinely angry about our treatment of the Eltarian civilians for the first time in his long reign. Greshtak felt something he had thought extinct in his species, fear. The Dominion's entire military doctrine was built on the assumption that their enemies valued their own lives more than their principles. These humans appeared to have no such weakness. Cancel Operation Crimson Harvest, Greshtak ordered, his voice barely above a whisper. Recall all reconnaissance fleets. We will not engage these humans until we understand what we face. The massive invasion that would have consumed 17 Council worlds was quietly shelved. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place in the shadowed halls of power. On the pirate stronghold of Ravager's Rest, Clan Chief Thockrell studied the same battle recordings with growing unease. The humans targeted their engines and weapon systems. Observed his tactical advisor. They could have destroyed every ship, but they chose to leave survivors. Why show mercy to slavers? Thockrell Escard face twisted into a grimace. Because they wanted the survivors to carry word of what happened. It's a message to every predator in the galaxy. This is what happens when you threaten the innocent. Within hours, the Ravager clans had cancelled all planned raids on Council shipping lanes. Even the most bloodthirsty pirates understood the wisdom of avoiding human attention. In the dark nebulae of the Void Reach, the machine intelligences known as the Harvesters processed the data with cold electronic logic. Their calculations were precise and terrifying. The probability of successfully conquering human protected space was effectively zero. The synthetic beings that had terrorized the Outer Rim for decades quietly retreated deeper into the cosmic darkness, their expansion. Protocols indefinitely postponed. Back in the crystalline chambers of the Galactic Council, an emergency session convened with an atmosphere completely different from the desperate meeting that had authorized humanity's deployment. Councillor Vextai stood before the assembly, his translucent skin now pulsing with patterns of joy and relief. "Honored delegates," Vextai announced, his voice carrying across the chamber. "I bring word from Zirian 7. Our people are free, the colony secure, and the Kepha threat has been neutralized." The chamber erupted in celebration as representatives from dozens of species cheered and clicked and hummed their approval. But from the shadows of the restricted archives, Archivist Nalthic's ancient voice cut through the noise. "We must consider the broader implications," the old keeper of records warned. "The humans have not simply won a battle. They have fundamentally altered the balance of power in our galaxy." The celebration quieted as the delegates absorbed the weight of his words. "What do you mean, Archivist?" asked Senator Wheelanex of the Core Worlds. Nalthic activated a holographic display showing the strategic situation across the galaxy. "In the past 72 hours, we have recorded the cancellation of 43 planned military operations by various aggressive species. The mere knowledge that humans exist and are willing to intervene has deterred conflicts that would have claimed millions of lives." General Murden nodded thoughtfully. "The humans don't just win battles. Their reputation alone has become a weapon. Pirates avoid systems they patrol. Raiders cancel operations in nearby sectors, and aggressive species are retreating to reevaluate their strategies. Meanwhile, aboard the human flagship Soul's Pride, Admiral Kim studied the intelligence reports flowing in from across the galaxy. The strategic picture was changing by the hour as aggressive species abandoned their expansion plans and retreated to defensive positions. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Commander Park, "we're receiving requests for human patrol missions from 17 different sectors. It seems our presence has become a deterrent to aggressive action across a third of Council." "Space," Kim nodded. Grimly, humanity had come to rescue 12,000 civilians, but they had accidentally become the galaxy's policemen. "What's our fleet deployment capability?" "We can maintain significant presence in 5 sectors simultaneously, sir. But we're already receiving requests from 12 different systems for permanent human bases." The officers' mess aboard the Dreadnought in Chorn's Fury. Captain Hyginley gathered her senior staff for their daily briefing. The mood was celebratory but thoughtful as they processed the magnitude of what they had accomplished. To humanity's first galactic deployment, Lee raised her coffee cup in a toast, and to the hope that our presence here will prevent the need for a future military action. Her officers echoed the sentiment, unaware that their actions had already prevented 17 different wars from starting. The mere knowledge that humans were watching had caused aggressive species throughout the galaxy to reconsider their plans. Captain Wonsik Choi, the fleet's tactical coordinator, studied the latest intelligence reports. "Captain, it appears we've accidentally solved several long-standing conflicts just by existing. The Thorian Empire has withdrawn from disputed territories. The Skull Fleet has abandoned their raid plans. And even the Synthetic Collective has gone dark." Lee smiled as she looked out at the stars through the ship's viewport. "It seems the galaxy needed someone willing to stand up to bullies. Earth just happened to be the species crazy enough to do it." Across human-patrolled space, merchant vessels traveled safer routes than they had in decades. Colony worlds slept peacefully knowing that somewhere nearby, human warships stood ready to respond to any threat. Children of a dozen different species grew up in a galaxy where might no longer made right, where predators feared the consequences of their actions. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth about Deathworld species. When you ask them for help, you don't get a measured response. You get overwhelming force applied with surgical precision, moral conviction, and an absolute refusal to compromise with evil. In the vast darkness between the stars, humanity's ships maintained their eternal vigil. Admiral Kim's fleet had become more than military units. They were symbols of hope for the innocent and harbingers of doom for those who would prey upon the weak. The children of terror had taken their place among the stars. and the universe was a safer place for their presence. Where once there had been fear, now there was protection. Where once there had been despair, now there was hope. The stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter, as if the cosmos itself approved of this galactic order. In the depths of space, humanity stood watch, ready to answer the call whenever innocence was threatened and justice needed champions. Asterisk, asterisk, the end, asterisk, asterisk.